Hi, my name's Hannah and I'm going to be fixing my art. We are now in the third week of September, which means it's time for part 3 of fixing my sword designs from Swordtember 2024. In my last 2 videos, I've gone over a couple of the reasons why Swordtember 2024 was not the best for me, so I recommend going back and watching them before continuing on with this video, just for a little bit of context, and I also go into a lot more detail in terms of what Swordtember is, and also Faith Schaffer's list, which is the list that I am going to be continuing with this Swordtember whilst fixing my old designs. As usual, I'm also going to be linking Faith Schaffer's Instagram page down in the description below. I believe they are doing another list for Swordtember 2025, so if you're new to Swordtember or you don't have a starting point for designing a sword of your own, I highly recommend going and checking out their prompt list. There's some really cool ones on there, and I just think it's a really good starting point for any of your designs that you've decided to do. This week, however, I am looking at day 20 from Faith's 2024 list, and the prompt for that day was fragmented. The initial design idea for this sword was to have a broken mirror, and I wanted the fragmented aspect of the design to be shards of glass that were coming away from the sword itself. So this is what I came up with. Now, it's not bad. It's definitely not the worst offender that I have on my list of swords that I'm going to be fixing in this mini-series. However, it does fall into that category again that I mentioned in my previous video of I looked at reference material too closely and ended up just drawing the initial idea, which is just a broken mirror. So I'm actually going to be doing a little bit less tweaking on this one. I still really like the initial concept. I just want to push the sword element of this design a little bit further. And because I'm pushing the initial design, I can jump straight into thumbnailing without having to look at any more reference material. I think really the only kind of references that I looked at during the thumbnailing design was just what kind of sword shapes I can do and how blades actually look on the outside. So for this thumbnailing stage, I started off by actually doing the blade itself being fragmented, kind of like a reference or a nod to the sword in Lord of the Rings. However, I did change my mind. I didn't think that that was the correct way to go, especially because I want all of these swords to still be functional. So having a broken sword like that, I just can't see it being swung around. I could have done like a relic, but that's not the prompt. The prompt is fragmented and I still wanted the sword to be usable. So I went into experimenting with different sword shapes instead, different weights to the sword, different kind of motifs that I can add to the blade itself and the handles. And eventually I came up with 3 initial designs and then decided to kind of combine them together in one final Frankenstein design, which is the design that I decided to stick with when moving on to the final colouring and rendering. The colouring and the rendering of the final sword as well was pretty self-explanatory. I decided to keep the kind of blade on the outside of the mirror slightly bluish, just to tie in with the glass a little bit, and I decided to keep the ornate gold colour as well for a little bit of contrast. Yeah, there's not really much to talk about here. I think it's quite nice to kind of just take a step back, and instead of doing a whole redesign of your work, you can make very big improvements by just revisiting it a year later and just changing slight things. I mean, really all I've done is shrink down the frame of that initial mirror and added a blade on the outside and incorporated it so it actually looks like one cohesive sword. So I think it's quite nice to show that not every change or every kind of art improvement that you do needs to be some big development. You could just tweak little things and it's still a massive difference from where you can be previously to where you are heading now in your art journey. So yeah, like usual, I am going to shut up for a second and I'm going to show off all of the other designs that I did for week 3 of Swordtember 2024. So sit back, relax, enjoy them, and then I will talk to you guys at the end of the video. there we are, week 3 done and dusted. This episode was a little bit shorter than the rest in this mini-series, and that is because for next week's video I have decided not to redesign one sword or 2 swords. I've decided to redesign 3 swords. So it's going to take a little bit more time and energy for me to get all of that into one video. Is it a nice send-off for 2024's redesign list? Maybe. Is it a nice way to finish off this mini-series? Maybe, but I think the real reason as to why I've decided to do 3 swords is because I genuinely couldn't decide which one was worse. So I hope that you all stick around for that video next week. For now though, I want to say thank you again for interacting with this video. I hope that you're all enjoying Swordtember, and again, let me know whose list you're doing, if you are doing someone's list or if you are just generating your own sword designs. Show them off, I'd love to see them as well. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.